All right, tonight's a special one. We've got Jay Dyer here from jaysanalysis.com. He's got a podcast too, Jay's Analysis. And he's been writing and speaking and lecturing on geopolitics and film analysis and religion, espionage, psychological warfare, really interesting stuff. And his latest book, Esoteric Hollywood, Sex, Cults, and Symbols in Film, it's doing pretty good. I think it was out a few months ago, and it hit Amazon's #1 spot. And, really good timing to talk about that one. So welcome to the show, Jay. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, guys. I'm glid to be here. I'm sorry, I'm vaping.
Well, we're having a little coughing fit over here, too. That's,
it's the... I always have to do a little bit of meth before a show because I'm in Tennessee and I like to stay up late to do my shows. But anyway... Yeah, man, the book has been out, I guess, about 5 months. And then, like you said, it hit #1 on Amazon's Film and Hollywood category. And then the Goodreads score plus Amazon score is almost at 100 5-star reviews.
Wow.
So that's pretty good for 5 months. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that's great. How long did it take you to write that? I mean, it seems to me like it would be an accumulation of a lot of your work over the years.
It was. I mean, it was kind of like, 6-7 years of blogging and just writing essays and stuff. And I was doing grad work at the same time, kind of back when I started doing it. And so I was doing a lot of writing throughout that whole period. Mm-hmm. And I finally just kind of collected it all together. And somebody, publisher asked if I had a book. And I said, yeah, I've got a rough outline. And took about 2 years to kind of get it fully mapped out, and should have a new one pretty soon. Actually, the process is a lot simpler, once you kind of go through it, then you know what to do. So I'm thinking most likely what I'll do is a sequel because this one did so well. Yeah. So I'll do like Empire Strikes Back, like Esoteric Hollywood, the sequel. And
you've obviously got plenty of content for that then?
Yeah, I think there's almost 1,000 posts at Jay's Analysis, or a little over that. So probably 140 or 50 film analysis now. And the book only has about 363 pages, but it's got probably 25 of my best analyses. But I've written a lot since then because the book was pretty much complete 2 years ago. So there's a lot more that could be in a new book, and then I've got a lot of ideas, for stuff to add, new material to add in the new coming book. So all that'll be out probably in the next year and a half. So
right on. Absolutely. I guess we should probably give everybody a little bit of a hint of what's in the book and a little bit of the background. Then it's Esoteric Hollywood. So do you get into all the symbolism in the movies, and how deep do you get into that?
Very deep, actually. Yeah, it's 363 pages and it's 404 footnotes. So there's a hefty dose of basically backing up my arguments. It's not just me speculating. Oh, I think this triangle is an all-seeing eye, and maybe it means this. I come at it pretty serious because if you go through a publisher, the publisher sends it to editors, and you have to. They fact check you, and you have to have your stuff straight. You can't just say whatever comes out of your butt. But the first section of the book is about 80 pages on Kubrick, and it's written at a college level. So it's pretty serious stuff. I think that everybody that reads the Kubrick sections is pretty much hooked. And the next section, what I do is Eyes Wide Shut, The Shining, and 2001: Space Odyssey, and then the second chunk is a bunch of Spielberg films like Close Encounters, AI, Minority Report, and then kind of comparing him to H.G. Wells, because I think that H.G. Wells kind of really set the stage for not just science fiction, but also Hollywood. And I think he had an overlooked influence and impact on Hollywood. So I really try to cover that, everything from Island of Dr. Moreau to Time Machine. And that's also kind of written from like a literary college perspective, where like if you take a class on literary theory or something like that in college, you would do the kind of analysis that I'm doing. Yeah,
and he probably had an underrated background as well that people don't really talk about a lot.
That's all hidden because I'm a secret agent of the Illuminati. Can't talk about that. But the third section of the book is the 70s and 80s fantasy. So I talk about Logan's Run, Zardoz, Labyrinth, Neverending Story, Ridley Scott's Legend, Blade Runner, and then Ridley Scott's more recent Prometheus. And then the final section of the book is the last 50 or 60 pages on 007 and David Lynch movies and Hitchcock. And then it kind of concludes with a chapter on the coordination between Hollywood and the CIA.
Perfect.
So that's what you're looking at. But you also, added bonus, it took me actually another month or two. The book was already ready last summer, and the publisher felt like that I talked about so much material that a lot of the content actually needed to be defined. So I had to go back and write these little sidebars, and there's like 50 or 60 of those that took 2 months to do. So you're actually getting basically a textbook. It's not just a movie scandal book. It's a hardcore film analysis, philosophy, geopolitics, espionage, conspiracy, everything, kind of wrapped in the costume of Hollywood. And that's what I do. Can
you summarize like the theme of the whole thing? Like, so you're analyzing all these movies and stuff, and there's some great categories of them all there, but is there an overarching theme where, this is purposeful symbolism and occult themes inserted into pop culture by a group of people kind of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. The first chapter is the introduction is film as ritual. And I talk about how film is more than just entertainment. It's as a form of art, it's also kind of a ritual process.
Right.
And many artists see themselves as shamans in a way. So I think you could argue Kubrick and David Lynch see themselves that way. And so the artwork is kind of their transmission from whatever spiritual forces or government forces influence them.
Right.
So that's yes, you're absolutely right. That's the overarching theme of the book, is that the arts and Hollywood in general are conveying much more than the surface level reading of what we think they're conveying.
Right.
And it becomes especially clear when you look at not just the esoteric stuff, but also the espionage stuff, because there's so much embedded in, James Bond stories, Bond novels, and movies that you might not expect are actually based in reality. I mean, obviously not everything, but a lot of what Ian Fleming wrote was based in reality. So yeah, that's the approach I take when I'm looking at the sci-fi stuff. I'm looking at, transhumanism, how we're being conditioned to accept that. I'm looking at esoteric stuff in 80s films, like how Neverending Story was actually the author, Michael Enda. He was actually basing the whole kid's story on Crowleyanism, which most people don't know. Wow. But that guy was a big time theosophist and Crowleyan. So what you're actually getting in the Neverending Story is this elaborate Gnostic presentation of cosmology. So all kinds of stuff like that, just, in a lot of places we wouldn't suspect, especially kids' movies.
As far as intention goes, I've always felt like Hollywood or some group of people come out with these movies to either debunk or make light of a subject that's actually going on, right? Like, for example, one of the things, I was just in the movies the other day and I watched all the previews coming on, and there was one for this movie Geostorm, right, which is about like man-made weather weaponry. And, lately that's been coming up more and more as all the, the patents for weather modification and all this stuff. And I feel like every time something's going to break open, a movie comes out about it to basically just make everybody think it's, just bullshit and entertainment. Is there a theme? Is there that type of theme going on too? Whether it's about like UFOs or disclosure or, weather modification or whatever it is?
Yeah. For example, one of the more revealing, goofy, satirical way films about weather modification is the 1998 adaptation of The Avengers. And I don't mean the Marvel Avengers. I mean the Avengers that was the 60s British TV show, the spy show.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch the 1998 film version with Sean Connery and Uma Thurman and Ray Fiennes, you learn that the whole plot that Sean Connery's character is up to, which his name's Prospero, it's based on Shakespeare, The Tempest, is that he's modifying weather. And he's going to use HARP as basically a kind of blackmail operation against different countries that don't go along with his globalist agenda. and it also includes mind control, MK Ultra. And the Uma Thurman character actually gets programmed with mind control, and she has alternate personality, split personality. All this kind of stuff is embedded in this very goofy movie. And that movie was, I don't think it's that bad. But it was voted, like worst movie of the year, got Razzies. But sometimes, yes, you'll find that satirical, goofy movies actually will at times have very revealing conspiratorial plots. The recent Charlie's Angels movies had very conspiratorial, revealing plots. There was another one I had on my mind I was going to tell you. Josie and the Pussycats, actually, that goofy rom-com. That actually has the military-industrial complex basically socially engineering people through pop music. That's the whole plot of the movie, is that they create trends. But as you said, it's presented in this very lighthearted, comedic, satirical fashion. And so I think on one level, yes, there is a layer of very out there, deep state stuff that's real, like weather modification or stuff like, programming mind controlling people through pop music. That comes out in something that's kind of kitschy and goofy and silly. Yeah, and even in these, but very real. Yeah, even in these international intrigue type movies, like almost every one now has this, this dark villain, obviously, who's into global control and tracking over something. Like even the latest Fast and the Furious has the whole global thing, right? And they've all got the latest tracking. Like they're just making it like cool that basically they're glorifying the NSA technology or whatever technology is out there, and they all seem to do it. Yeah, the plots of the movies are usually, we've got to do all the spying because there's a bad guy who's going to do it if we don't. Right. So, if we don't watch you, some other criminal's going to. But, of course, the people watching are the criminals. And actually, the last Bond movie, Spectre, that was the whole plot, was that Blofeld basically had backdoor technology and that he was had a bunch of moles inside British GCHQ, which was spying on everybody. And Blofeld was going to use this spying tech to rule the world and all this kind of stuff. And, that was actually based on roughly the character of Soros. And it kind of hinted at leaks from WikiLeaks and Snowden and all that kind of stuff, which I generally take a lot of this as kind of theatrical. Even in the mainstream news, it's somewhat theatrical. So I tend to be skeptical of all this stuff. But there's no doubt that Spectre was a prime example of predictive programming. Absolutely. Yeah.
Is there any other anything more recent that's down those lines?
That's a good question.
All those Transformers must be.
They seem like that too. Yeah.
I kind of gave up after the first Transformers. I was kind of done with those. So I haven't actually seen I think I saw that one about the moon. That was very bizarre, like Dark Side Moon. That was the last one I saw. So I haven't seen the new ones, but. Trying to think if I saw something recent that was heavily propaganda. Probably, if you think back to the last Star Trek, this is probably the most recent heavily. I mean, Doctor Strange had a lot of really crazy esoteric stuff in it for sure. So I could include that, but I wouldn't really say it's predictive programming. But the Star Trek, I forget what was it called. I titled my analysis something like "Social Justice Warriors in Space" because that's basically what it was. They were like, anybody who wants to retain their cultural identity, they're the terrorists, and they're going to blow up, the Federation's big capital city, which is basically New York, and all this kind of weird, social justice warrior programming, which is long time. That's been a long time theme in Star Trek, but that one comes to mind as social engineering. But
well, even
That's
even
weird. I'm a Trekkie and I didn't get social engineering.
You didn't catch that?
Luckily, I got through that
without getting
Am I a
brainwashed.
social justice warrior?
No, I don't think so. No, you made it through that one. Okay. So, but even the Transformer ones you guys were talking about, like, I think the latest one, I saw that, and it even had this global, like the Transformers, it kind of merged with the global, there's a global military industrial complex now, and there was a, like a resistance movement that seemed, I mean, it all seems so, kind of like exaggerates where we're at and doesn't make it seem as bad that we're heading there in a way. Like it just seems to justify all this globalist stuff that's going on in a way.
Yeah, I think the movies work on many levels. So at times they're there to maybe demonize one country. The CIA was actually involved in movies like American Sniper and Zero Dark 30.
Yeah,
those were there to prop up the American mythology.
Yeah,
sometimes movies like Argo or something like that comes out to demonize Iran or to kind of stoke again old tensions from the 70s about how we're supposed to view some Middle Eastern country or something like that. So a lot of those directly Pentagon, CIA influenced films, a lot of those have a basically time contingent propaganda purpose.
Yeah,
and then sometimes something else like Doctor Strange might come out and it has this very deep esoteric perennial philosophy type agenda that's all about
spirituality,
other dimensions and all that kind of stuff. So it just depends. I mean, that's a good question though. I guess I should have been more up on recent movies.
No.
I'm not really very up on recent movies, so.
No, I was going to ask about the D&D, like the Department of Defense and the Pentagon influencing them as well as the CIA, because I know that the DoD is definitely lending hardware and shit, and I thought they had some script control because of that. Like, here, we'll lend you these these planes and ships and all, but we want to review your script and tweak it a little bit. And then the other comment I had was. Actually, let's just stop there for now. I can't remember what my other one was.
Well, if you saw a couple days ago, there was the WikiLeaks retweeted the leak that dealt with Tom Secker requested a FOIA on Pentagon influence in films of late. And so there was a leak or a FOIA request that was released of 1,800 recent films. Yes. Look this up. This article went viral.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Medium.com from a few days ago. And this is what I've been saying for a long time, as well as other people, that it's not just, this or that film that you have a hard time thinking of one. It's like all this stuff. It's TV shows, to insert all kinds of messages that are, related to military recruitment or related to interpersonal relationships and how you need to view genders and all kinds of just shit is put in all of these films everywhere. And there's bonuses. You get, additional money and funding if you add these messages. That's what the incentives are there for. But it also, it all serves this overall agenda of basically, I think the Hollywood is just another arm of the CIA is the best way to understand it. Hollywood is the culture creation factory and the music industry of the CIA and the Pentagon. It's there to do that.
Seems like, go ahead.
Well, and another arm of the more of the international globalists as well. Like I don't know if you came across any influence from the Lear Foundation at all, but they've apparently influenced with some of this social engineering stuff directly into a bunch of TV shows and movies as well, and they're proud of it. I mean, I heard a speech of this one of the spokesperson from Lear Foundation talking about how they've influenced this and they've thrown this little tidbit in this script, and it's disgusting.
It's basically a covert version of, like, if you listen to NPR or National Public Television or whatever. If you listen to NPR, they'll be like, this segment paid for by a grant from the Gates Foundation, right? You hear that all the time, and that's on purpose. And so basically, NPR is a great example of an open Pentagon propaganda front. But people think that, oh, well, Hollywood is a bunch of private companies, and so therefore it's no, it's not different, because all of those private companies are all tied into the same global economic combine. And that's why there's been so many books, and I mean mainstream books, that have been written about the history of the connections between the mob, different mafias, and entertainment in Hollywood, and different drug cartels. They all tie in together. And so there's not, I mean, there's one level of distinction between private and public, and, you know, Columbia Pictures versus DreamWorks or something like that. But really at the top, you're dealing with, you know, a lot of power players who are involved in a lot of the same stuff. And there's a lot of people from the CIA will go and write scripts for movies. Yeah. And this is well known. And like you said, you were talking about Pentagon and influence. There are other books before mine that were written not so much about esotericism, but just strictly about the influence of the CIA and Pentagon by academics. So there's mainstream academic publications that have been around for years discussing the interplay between those different, supposedly different worlds.
So the thing I don't understand, and having heard all that, and before we move on to different sort of topics, so why would they allow a movie like this new one that comes out with, is it Tom Cruise and the whole cocaine smuggling out of Colombia or whatever? That, if you ever seen the reviews of that, like they're glorifying this whole government of the U.S. getting involved in drug smuggling, and he was their puppet or whatever. And they glorify this whole thing, but they say, oh, it's based on a true story and all. So now why are they coming out with movies like that are so damning against, like, do they think just people don't care, or is this to just Hollywoodize that whole theme, or do they know that the cat's out of the bag? Because now everybody knows that the CIA is running drugs, right? So,
the CIA has been co-opted.
Been co-opted by who?
The CIA was started by the CIA was started by basically the Rockefellers. It was Rockefeller Private Intelligence, and prior to the creation of the CIA at the behest and request of Rockefellers and other power players, there was already private intelligence known as the Inquiry, which was a gathering of a bunch of academics. So the whole spy world comes out of the academic world, right? And most of those universities from which they came were universities that were and are run by grants from these big foundations. So the CIA was never like some heroic thing. It was always the private enforcement army of the bankers. And if anybody doubts that, I would just recommend reading either Carol Quigley's Tragedy and Hope or Servando Gonzalez's book, Psychological Warfare in the New World Order, where he details basically the whole history of the CIA back to those big families. So it's basically just private intelligence for big mafia families is the best way to understand it. So it's always been this way. And the history of all the major networks is all people out of the OSS. Sarnoff, Haley, they're the guys who started and headed, CBS, ABC, NBC. They're at the ground root of the big networks. And so network television was always intended to be mind control and social engineering from the very beginning. That was his whole purpose.
Yeah, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that.
Well, just read Daniel Estelin's book on Tavistock, which is, I've read other books about Tavistock, but his is pretty good because it's brief, man. It's just like 200 pages. Here you go. Here's a bunch of quotes from Tavistock documents, like changing images of man out of the 1940s. Yeah. Basically planning the future that we live in now.
Yeah, that's really what I also wanted to. I've been dying to get into it with you. It's refreshing. I've been listening to some of your podcasts, and you've been talking about the influence behind all the social engineering, right? Like a lot of people are talking or giving voice to the Tavistock problem and all this stuff that really goes back. There is a trail to this social engineering and stuff. Like this is actually coming true 20, 30 years later and longer from what they've been planning. So I wanted to get into that a bit.
Yeah, and again, you need to look no further than the Rockefellers, who put in the grant money for the beginning of the MKUltra programs, which dealt with drug manipulation and mind control. They put up the money for Dr. Ewan Cameron to open up his mansion facility testing grounds at Mount Royal in Canada. That was where a lot of the electroshock treatments were going on. He was testing the effects of large doses of LSD and electroshocks to, quote, repattern people, mentally speaking. And by the way, this goes on and on and on. I can give you, there's Jose Delgado's book, Physical Control of the Mind, one of the MKUltra doctors who literally just writes a book about mind control. Dr. John C. Lilly, another one of the MKUltra doctors who famously did all the LSD tests on dolphins to see how
float tank guy, right?
Yes. Well, yeah. John C. Lilly wrote a book, Programming and Metaprogramming, where he talks about dosing kids with LSD and giving them a base programming, which they could later manipulate in life as they got older. And John C. Lilly really thought you could control the population with LSD. So are you starting to see the pattern of counterculture, right? This is the stuff that, Dave McGowan talks about in Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, that the counterculture comes out of these social engineer guys who were dosing all these people with LSD. Don't forget Alfred Kinsey, who was fiddling with all the kids and children in his science experiments to see how to mess them up sexually. That was also paid for by Rockefeller money. So again, it all goes back to the same families putting their money into the founding of sociology. Comes out of the University of Chicago, and that was all paid for by the Rockefellers. Feminism in the modern world paid for by the Rockefellers, Abby Rockefeller. So it's all out there. There's no question about this being a conspiracy. It's all documented in the mainstream books by the guys involved in the programs. They write books about it.
Wow. Yeah, we had McGowan on, and we also had Estelin on a while back, but we tried to have him on again, but it just didn't. We tried like 3 times and we couldn't connect with him. But maybe that's the book that, Darren, that's the book we should probably talk to him about, that Tavistock. Wouldn't that be fascinating?
Yeah.
So I really think the problem now for them, the elite in this regard, and why there's such a backlash in the political climate is because I'd like to know what you think about this. The Clinton Foundation's being sort of uncovered for a real vehicle of influence from foreign powers, and it's sort of bringing up this whole problem with charities and foundations. And you've mentioned it already, that these foundations are going way back decades now. This is how they fund all these initiatives, right? So now people are realizing that the money that goes into these things isn't being used for good a lot of times. And, so I think this is really why the big backlash is here, is because the potential end of this slush fund money laundering through foundations is here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done a few videos on Clinton Foundation and how that's kind of an exemplary case of what you're talking about.
Right.
And they're just really recent newcomers to this model.
Right.
You go back to the Reese Committee investigations, which looked at the Carnegie Foundation, in the Ford Foundation, and others, Rockefellers too, and they noticed. I guess those were several decades ago, but they noticed all these same things, that they were actually controlling and changing, altering education in America, basically to dumb it down. The stuff that Charlotte Iserbyt talks about. That was all part of the Reese Committee hearings. So it's known. That's not a question. But the model of how you do all this with a private tax-free foundation is really the trick of the big level players. I mean, mobsters don't figure this out until they get, big level and turn, quote, legit. That's why all you got to do to understand this is just watch the third Godfather. That's the one where Michael Corleone realizes that when you're a big global player, you need a tax-free foundation to launder all your money through, and then you can influence politics much easier than if you're a taxable, multi-million-dollar
casino
private
or something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's literally what Michael learns in the third Godfather.
That is too much. So I see, this is the thing. I didn't really grasp that this has been going on for so long until, last year or two, realizing, how bad some of these more contemporary ones are. So it's really good to know that this has been going on for millennia, probably. I mean, at least the last 100 years.
It seems to be becoming blatantly obvious, though, especially in like the news, in the mainstream news.
Yeah.
Like it seems like you can't recover from this. There's no coming back. Either you're win or I don't know how they bounce back. Maybe they were already on the way out.
Well, I hope, but I mean, I think we've got a long way to go before any kind of real change happens. I mean, the main power that the globalists have is the monetary system. That's the main way that they can control entire nations and continents. And so any nation state, for example, that tried to ever back away from globalism, they have basically the entire banking structure of the rest of the world to do economic terrorism through the IMF and World Bank. You can wreck one nation's economy. You can set up tariffs, sanctions so that you don't bring any of their products into your country. And that was really why the globalists for so long were behind free trade, as well as Karl Marx. Marx and Engels were also supporters of free trade because they understood that it would have this wrecking effect to destroy nation states and bring in the new model of the mega power block, the continental power blocks, which would then be integrated into a global power block. So, yeah, the Atlanticist Anglo-American establishment has the upper hand, and they have had the upper hand since the 20th century because they, as Dr. Quigley says, engineered the last two world wars, and those two world wars effectively weakened any potential resistance in Germany or Russia. So Germany and Russia were basically effectively neutralized from World War I and World War II, and then, of course, the Cold War. And that's why, what you see in geopolitics and the news nowadays is basically the mopping up exercise where they're really trying to move into the final phases of absolutely no opposition from any corner of the globe. And then, it moves into the next phase of, what Brzezinski talks about between two ages, the new age, the new age of technocratic AI dominance.
Yeah, right. I was just going to ask you about, the changing of the guard, right? Brzezinski and Rockefeller passing away, right. and this in this time, is there a new guard like the technocrats and these guys like Zuckerberg and Google, and are they the ones that are really going to start influencing things that have been grooming them for a while? Like, how do you see the guard changing? And if Brzezinski and Rockefeller even did die, I haven't heard any conspiracies about them being alive, but it wouldn't surprise me if they sort of felt this thing crumbling and wanted to get out or something. I don't know.
I tend to think that they died. I haven't thought of any or heard of any. but I think that it's. I mean, Brzezinski wrote his book in 1970, and he was just echoing what H.G. Wells, Bertrand Russell, and prior technocrats and futurists had planned and wanted to see in terms of transhumanism and technocracy. So Brzezinski was basically saying in 1970 where we would be at right now in 2017. So they knew where it was going to go, and that would require basically completely committed cult member technocrats like people you're talking about, like Schmidt at Google, Regina Dugan from DARPA to Google, Cass Sunstein at the NSA. I mean, these are the characters who are, sort of taking the reins. Mm-hmm. Not so much of the monetary influence, the banking influence, and all that. The assets are still going to be in these big bloodline families. That's not going anywhere. But they have a managerial class, and that's the technocrats that we're talking about, who are going to actually run the system.
Right, the foot soldiers, the elite foot soldiers, like
CDC.
That's what I think of the Bilderbergers. Like they're just like the pawns.
Must be in there too. The CDC.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Shit.
Yeah. These are. I mean, the whole corporate world, Fortune 100, Fortune 500. These are essentially controlled by the big families who have the basically the controlling shares in most of these companies. I mean, there's that study that was put out a few years ago. There's a whole TED talk on it. I wrote an article on it, where they've actually graphed out the network of a few families and companies that literally can control the global market. So this is not a conspiracy anymore. It's known.
Yeah, I remember that coming out.
Where do you think these new groups like Antifa fit into the grand scheme of things?
I'm not positive, but I would tend to think that that was cooked up, just like Black Lives Matter, by probably some kind of Soros-type funding. And then that is there to kind of be a dialectical opposition to fake far-right movements. I'm not saying everybody on the right or far-right is fake. I'm just saying that that's there to be a foil to the alt-right or something like that, because I think they knew eventually there's going to be backlash with a lot of this stuff that's being pushed through, and people are going to start, choosing different political options and getting involved in opposing globalism. So I think they want to have a lot of ready-made traps for people.
Solinsky type stuff, right? I mean, they're really accusing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sorry.
So yeah, I think that Antifa is 100% completely a created fake thug run type thing, exactly after the model of Solinsky, like you said.
Yeah, it's crazy what's going on. I mean, I just don't understand.
They just came out of nowhere, dude. I mean, you know what I mean? Suddenly there's Antifa now that Trump's, running. It's like, oh, where the heck did these people come from? They're just like, suddenly there's all these guys in black, masks running around. That doesn't happen apart from, like advertising it in magazines.
Well, when did the definition of fascism change too? I mean, it's technically probably been a fascist. All the Western countries have kind of been more fascist to the original definition, wasn't it? I mean,
even Eric Blair or George Orwell wrote decades ago that fascism is just a made-up word that you use to scare people. You just stick that on anybody that you don't like. But the technical definition is just a merger of the private and corporate worlds running the government. So that's exactly what we have, ironically.
Fuck.
Or actually, yeah, not that ironic. Because everyone knows it's so blatant, and nobody it's like,
well, I don't think people know what to do. They can't, it's hard to get out of the trap. Go ahead.
The irony is that the money that funds Antifa comes from the people that they think they're opposing.
Yeah, that's exactly. So what I can't wrap my head around is as far as this future prediction of the technocrats and the technocratic, state, like how did they know back then that it was going to be like this, like with the technology on? I mean, I just can't even wrap my head around how they could have even foreseen that we were going to be in this state. But when you read stuff like
Unabomber Manifesto,
yeah, or Huxley stuff, or it does just seem like they, I don't know. I mean, obviously there's ways to. Believe me, I think that there's ways we can read the future, and they were probably tapped into some higher realm, I would tend to think.
Well, there's that possibility, and there's also the fact that I think a lot of technological discoveries are made a long time ago, but they're kept secret.
Oh, right. And yeah, that's the other thing.
The establishment's very good at keeping secrets, and so what they do is if some new revolutionary tech is discovered, it's going to be kept secret for a long time because they don't actually want markets being revolutionized or changed. They want things to continue at a certain pace. And a great example of this is the documentary Light Bulb Conspiracy that talks about planned obsolescence and how
the light bulb meetups and all that shit, those motherfuckers. When I was in Oregon, there's a church there that has a light bulb that's been burning since like 1908 or some shit. And it was, if you look at it, it was before the whole light bulb thing, group or whatever formed.
Well, what's interesting about that documentary is that they talk about all these examples of products that are intended to fall apart after a year or two. And they could easily make products that would last 10, 20, 30, 50 years, but they intentionally don't And that actually ties into the point about technology being suppressed because they want, like oil, I'm not saying that oil is bad. I think there's, it works good, but I'm sure that there's more advanced stuff than oil.
Oh, yeah.
But they're not going to allow that to change the market anytime soon, precisely because the world is not the way free market libertarians think. It's not based on innovation and whoever has the best idea. The world is based on complete and total control and underhanded, dirty tactics and practices. They kill people over inventions.
Well, and they're using that technology as well. I mean, there is something going on with the secret space program, and how these globalists that we're talking about fit into that, I don't even know, and I can't even speculate if it's some of these guys like Brzezinski or if it's a whole different level of humans that are running around in these high-tech craft flying around in them. But I mean, they don't want this stuff to come out to the commercial market because that's in their in their back pocket, right? They don't even want to use that in wars or anything like that. I mean, they have technology that could do a lot more damage to the enemies as well.
Space program is a good example because Brzezinski talked about that also in 1970 would be the space race and controlling space and all this stuff. And my view is that if you look at, this is just my opinion, if you look at SETI, I don't think SETI is about searching for extraterrestrials. My just opinion, it's my speculation, is that what do you think they would use a giant multi-million-dollar dish for?
Defense?
What's more devious? I think it's related to surveillance or harm. Yeah. I think that they were saying that a lot of this stuff in the 70s and 80s was being set up for interplanetary defense or missile defense or asteroid defense or some bullshit like this. And I think what they were really doing was setting up the global NSA surveillance grid and the internet. I think that's what they were really setting up. Now, what's beyond that in terms of aircraft and advanced aircraft, I don't know or claim to know. I think that whatever the UFO phenomenon is, it is this advanced technology that, has been suppressed, probably anti-gravity type stuff or something like that. Where they got it is anyone's guess. Maybe they're all tripping acid and invoking Lucifer. And I mean, that might be what's going on. I mean, that's what Watson claimed, right? I mean, didn't he see the DNA helix while he was tripping or something?
Yeah.
Then the guy who did the Hubble telescope said that he was tripping and he saw an elf. An elf came and told him to get money from the Rockefellers to build the Hubble telescope. I'm not joking. That's the official story.
I don't think I've heard that one.
I got some mushrooms. I should hit those guys up for some money. What could I do?
Grimerica,
we'll make a telescope. We'll make something.
If Terrence McKenna and a clockwork elf come to you, they'll probably instruct you who to get your money from.
Perfect.
But
why do you think, I don't know, to me it seems like I didn't really, maybe it's just because I wasn't paying attention, but the whole, the amount of fake bullshit news, not just mainstream, everywhere, seems to be so much harder to sift through in the last 24 months or 12 months even.
Yeah, I think this was an intentional psychological operation to be the future justification for cracking down on the internet.
Right. Yeah. Wow. That's pretty deep, but yeah, I can see that. Hey, Darren? This is how they're gonna gain that digital control, right? Is everybody's got to be licensed, everybody needs permission. They're gonna have to be verified.
Well, they also want to convince the public of those things, so they don't want to just do it. They want people to believe that it's the right thing to do, and to get people to believe that, you have to try to pass off these goofy ideas like, the Trump stole the election because of fake news and hackers in Macedonia were posting fake Facebook videos, and Trump colluded with Russia and Russia hacked the election. And see, it's all a danger because of fake news and manipulation on the internet. So I think they really want to people to buy into this, but it doesn't seem to be working on just a base level. Like, I don't think most people are.
I know CNN's had to delete and re-upload their app at the Canadian store like 3 times in the last month.
It couldn't get any better. They really didn't see. I went in to check for myself because I'm like, is this fake news? I'm going to go in and check my app in the App Store and see. And it was like a couple thousand 1-star reviews.
270. I'm going to see if they've.
But that's pretty deep. Like that's deep psychological warfare. I mean, the people that are propagating this don't even know that that's what's going on, right?
If you doubt me, just read Cass Sunstein's article on. He wrote a famous essay back in 2008 on cognitive infiltration and fake news on the internet. And basically, that's what he theorizes. And he, by the way, was eventually appointed head of the NSA. So you're not talking about a small time player. You're talking about Harvard lawyer who writes philosophy papers on psyops. And they talk about these very things.
That's crazy. How's the app there, Darren? Did you check it out?
It's up to 350 again.
1 stars?
It's up to like 1.25.
Oh, wow. Oh, doing good.
The top 3 are fake news, fake app, awesome if you want to pollute your mind.
That's hilarious.
Oh, that is pretty funny. So oh man, I got a couple questions here, but I mean, talking about the, this influence and whether it can be on some sort of, supernatural thing. I mean, I did get the sense like six months ago, a year ago that, it's hard to ignore the supernatural aspect to this political polarization, and I started thinking, and I know you're into religion and stuff like that, and you're a Christian, but I started thinking about it, like, is this good versus evil too? Like, is this, or that's probably not that's probably too objective to say that, but is there, when we had this guy on that was writing this blog about Pepe, and the amount of synchronicities and craziness going on with that whole thing. And even Hillary acknowledged Pepe. Like, is there a spiritual war going on here in the background as well?
Well, I mean, in one sense, I would say this spiritual warfare does, in a way, translate into politics and geopolitics. But I wouldn't push that point too much, because I think the majority of politics is theater and theatrics and not real anyway. I think that the plan of the global elite marches on despite who's in office. So I don't really put too much stock in that. But on another level,
at another level, when they're trying to teach kids about anal sex and they're trying to basically evangelize for pedophilia and make it lawful, I think you're looking at stuff that is straight up dark forces and satanic. And I mean, that's more or less what's been coming out, in relationship to Jimmy Savile and all this kind of stuff. So, yeah. That's kind of what I was getting at. I mean, it's not hard to go there with that, that there is this stuff coming out and it's not fake. This is what's happening.
It's coming from all sides, that one too, right? You're getting it from far right and you're getting it from far left.
Yeah.
In the form of like Milo and what's the gay Star Trek guy? George Takei. Yeah.
Oh, you mean? Oh, I see what you mean. You mean normalizing this whole thing? Yeah.
Right. I think those are definitely examples of spiritual darkness, and then I think that's going to keep pressing forward because it doesn't stop. Basically, where does it end? It ends in like human sacrifice, cannibalism, bestiality. I mean, that's really, there's no other places to go beyond that.
Right. So,
but I mean, all those things vindicate, I think, that people would laugh at things that are in the Bible or the Old Testament or ancient religious texts or something like that. But I mean, we're seeing this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So to me, it doesn't seem that it's like, well, you think I'm crazy for believing this? Well, I mean, this is what's actually going on in the world. So at least I have some kind of map or guide or explanation for what's going on here.
Right.
That I think makes sense.
What do you think about the middle part of spirituality, like the church of experience? Like, we talked to a lot of people on the show and a lot of our listeners who have had awakenings, or they've had downloads where they've got all this information that they're sharing. So whether it's like a channeling aspect or a personal transformation through meditation or psychedelics or whatever the case, NDEs, OBEs, like there's a large list of stuff that's happening to people that make them realize that we're not in this materialistic society. Like, we're in a schizophrenic society where most of the people you know and love and yourself have had these experiences. There's something more to life, but we're living in this paradigm that says, no, we're just a bunch of, materialistic, robots. So what about that middle ground, right? The people that are waking up to their own sort of personal experiences.
I think that those experiences at times can be good, but I think there's also a danger of trying to seek out just a mystical experience and not trying to be grounded in a coherent worldview and have a basis for both rational, logical analysis of facts and also metaphysics and intuition and spirituality. I think that all those things kind of have to be balanced. But I would caution against seeking out a quote mystical experience, just precisely because those things can be very deceiving. We can feel like we contacted something or experienced something through some synthetic means, like a drug, a rave, something goofy like that, and that really does dupe a lot of people into thinking that they had a legitimate experience because they took a bunch of ecstasy at a Chemical Brothers concert or something like that, which I'm not saying that person can't have had a real, quote, spiritual experience, but they might have had a demonic experience. They might have had a negative experience, which I think is also very real. So I would say with what some of the Orthodox fathers say, like St. Gregory Palamas, he cautions people against seeking spiritual experience and rather we kind of already have established means and practices for approaching the divine. Of course, for me, I think that's Orthodox theology, but I would just tend to be leery of those things. And you're going to have enough difficulty, and you can have enough spiritual phenomena going on in your life without having to seek out necessarily some radical event. In other words, instead of looking at like a single event, I think we need to be looking at like every single day, what's going to change my life, what's going to change my perspective, what's going to get me grounded in a solid worldview that I can approach every single day to, rather than some single life-changing mystical event, which may or may not happen and which may or may not be good.
Yeah, that's interesting advice, because I'm sort of more of a spiritual new agey kind of guy than religious, but I've looked into and I know enough people that have had personal experiences with whether it's like incubus or succubus, or I've read a couple books on demonic possession, like the rite and stuff like that, and it really does make me think, like, it really does seem like there's something going on, and you do have to be careful with how you approach those other dimensions,
Oh, absolutely. I think those worlds and spiritual realms and planes are very real, and they're not to be taken lightly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't fuck with Ouija boards.
No, for sure not. No, we did that as kids, and were we talking about that on the show, Darren, the other day, when I just realized that could have been around the time we had that ghost experience too?
No.
Yeah.
No, that was off on your own.
That wasn't here.
So I guess it's just going to amplify then, that we could just look at this getting worse until, at this point, I assume from your perspective anyway, we're well past the point of no return.
No, I don't think that at all. In fact, I have a very positive view. Hello?
Is that what you meant, Darren? What did you mean by no return?
Well, just with the politics and the fake news and the division, and it just seems like it's all getting a whole lot worse before it gets better.
Well, that may be true, but I mean, I look at the history. I mean, I did a lot of history in undergrad and grad school, and on my own, did a lot of historical research. And there's cycles in history and patterns in history, so I'm not too worried about, the end of the world or any of that kind of stuff. I don't think that's coming anytime soon. We could have 10,000 more years of all kinds of changes. I mean, we don't have to be pessimistic. I'm certainly not, but I also have a religious perspective that informs why I wouldn't necessarily be pessimistic. But I think truth wins out in the end, and the globalist system is based on flaws. It's based on bad anthropology, based on Darwinism. And I think because those things aren't actually true, that the system that they try to put into play and overlay is eventually going to be so harmful even to the minions of it that it's going to be very difficult to get it into place. And I mean, even if they have like AI trying to run everything, I mean, I'm not sure that's necessarily going to work out, because I mean, you still got to have people running these computers and working on these computers. So no, I don't think there's any need to be fearful. But that's kind of long term. I think for nation states as they are, yes, I think there is a big danger, and I think that they're definitely going to try to impose this global technocratic order. But I think it's just going to be so bad for so many people. It's going to be very difficult to try to get across that. To try to convince everybody to accept their own doom is not an easy order.
I feel like there's going to be a bunch of people just going off the grid. Like, if it gets that bad, it's just going to be like, fuck this. I don't want any of this. And they'll just opt right out of the system completely. I feel like there'll be like a separation or something between the techies and the people going back to the earth, kind of.
Could be, yeah, could be. I mean, there's a lot of different possibilities, but who knows what the future is going to be. I guess Brzezinski and H.G. Wells had a plan, but it's also partly up to what we choose. You know what I mean? It's not like it's all predetermined. I think that we have choices, and I also think that there's a sense in which if people go along with this, they also kind of willingly sign on to their own self-destruction. So I think, we're all ultimately kind of going to get what we deserve either way.
That's interesting.
That's kind of like the old, you get the government you deserve.
I don't know about that. I think he's talking more on a personal level.
Yeah, I'm saying like individuals who, choose to not hear and listen to what's true and be wise about their actions and planning for the future and all that kind of stuff, and how they view friends and family and how they treat other people, and et cetera, et cetera. I think we're all ultimately going to get our fair rewards.
Yeah. So hey, I wanted to get your take on this, but I was thinking at the beginning of the show. Now it kind of seems a bit irrelevant in a way, but it kind of jumps back to Hollywood in an indirect way, because since this whole political climate has shifted, I've really noticed all these stars, like big ones. I mean, whether it's like Madonna or Bono or Pink Floyd or who's that guy that from that old band, Darren, who am I thinking of? Tom DeLonge. Like, I mean, these people are just getting, and even some of the Hollywood stars are just getting really, really hateful. Like, are they just genuinely afraid that the infrastructure that they've built their whole, success on is changing, or are they being negatively influenced? Like, do you see any evidence of like actual manipulation there, or is it just that they're sincerely scared for their paradigm to change?
Probably all the above. I think that you're not talking about geniuses when you're talking about, A-list actors or musicians. You're talking about people who have been brainwashed by the subculture that they've been invested in for years. And for A-list stars, they worship their own fame and image, and so they buy into their own delusions. So I don't think that they really, maybe some of them understand
right
exactly what's going on, but maybe some of these people, a lot of these people have their minds bombed out on drugs anyway, so they may not even be there anymore. But I do think that, from their perspective, they're afraid that paradigm could collapse. Whether it actually will or is collapsing is a different question. But I think a lot of them generally are afraid that, the liberal world order is not going to work according to their plans and what they bought into. I definitely think that that's happening. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I even feel like some of them, their message in the past would even contradict their views on the political thing now. Like, I mean, you got some people like, whether it's Pink Floyd or some of these other sort of, not really counterculture, but alternative in a way to the mainstream, and they're just surprising me with their hate.
Some of these people also could be virtue signaling to fit into or get work. Fit into the cult in Hollywood or to get work in Hollywood.
Yeah, maybe.
So they might just be playing to get work, because if you remember in one of the Podesta emails or one of the WikiLeaks, I forget what, but there was Hillary and the Democrats were actually funding and ordering different programs and messages by Colbert.
Right.
So if you're Colbert and you want to whore yourself out, what you're going to do is virtue signal that you are, pro Hillary. There's a good chance down the road that you're going to get, some Clinton Foundation money for the Daily Show.
We should try that.
Yeah, just try it out.
See if it goes. Can't hurt.
No, it can't hurt. It'll hurt us spiritually.
It'll definitely hurt. Yeah, immediately.
The truth will come out.
So I think I'm gonna have to head pretty soon. But,
I just wanted to ask you about your future with. I think you got a project with Jay Wiedner or something as well. I just want to give you a chance to talk about that before we shut it down.
Yeah, that's pretty much being wrapped up in post-production. We filmed 17 episodes. I actually just today watched the first episode, and it came out really, really cool. I'm really happy with it. Super, super slick, professionally done. And that should air pretty soon. We're hoping, in the next month or two. I don't actually know how far they are in completing all the episodes in terms of the editing and production, all that. But we also are planning to film 6 more episodes. So the owners and everybody really liked it. So That's a good. So I'm actually writing 6 new episodes for the show. But yeah, it's going to be called Hollywood Decoded, and should be out on Gaia pretty soon, the next month or two.
How do you get so much work done? I find it unbelievable that you do that. All your shows, your podcasts, your writing, it's unbelievable. How do you get it done?
You treat it every day like a job.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a night like just a daily routine, just hitting the grindstone on it. Yeah,
it is a daily routine. You have to, and you're most effective from morning to early afternoon, and then you're kind of done.
Yeah.
So that's how it goes. Yeah.
And then you jump on podcasts after dinner. I think this and
exactly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have those hours stolen from us.
Right on, Jay. Well, thanks for coming on, man. Where can people just jaysanalysis.com, right?
Yeah, and to get the book, please don't get it from Amazon. Amazon undercuts authors. So if you would go to Jay's Analysis, and there's a tab at the top. There's also a picture where you can get signed copies of the book from me. Everybody loves it. 95% positive reviews. So yeah, just order it from me and I'll send you a copy. It'll get there pretty quick. And I also offer subscription for $4.95 a month or $60 a year for those who want to get into philosophy lectures, talks, interviews, all kinds of stuff.
Nice. Well, right on. Thanks, buddy. I'll put all those links in the show notes. And thanks so much for coming on and discussing all this fascinating stuff.
Absolutely. Anytime you guys want to talk again, let me know.
Okay. Thanks, buddy.
Ciao.
Have a good night.
That was a chat with Jay Dyer from Jay's Analysis. Good one.
I like it, man. I like all this deep historical stuff from the influencers, you know, the elite, the stuff that I'm not really touching on very much, but every time I listen to some of that, I learn quite a bit. Right? There's a lot of organizations back then engineering us. I feel invaded.
Feel engineered?
Engineered.
Yeah, you look a little engineered.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not.
Thanks, buddy. That's a compliment.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Engineered my calves.
Oh, some people are worried you're getting sick of that. But I'd let them know it's fine.
That was good. That was a fun one with Jay. There's a lot. Like when you start looking at his website and all the stuff he's analyzed from Hollywood, all the movies and all the crazy stuff in there.
Yeah, there's tons. Yeah, you could spend hours, days. He
had one from Clockwork Orange. I mean, I didn't want to get into too many details with him about all the movies specifically, but there's a ton of cool movies in there that he's analyzed and that he's, done reviews on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was running in Knowles Hill Park and I was listening to his show and he was talking about, and he had this other lady on. He's on a Boilermaker podcast. I think it's a weekly show with 4 people and they do little segments and stuff like that. It's really interesting. But they're talking about him analyzing that Point Break movie, and this lady on the podcast she never has seen all these movies that he's talking about. They're from the early 90s. And it's pretty funny. There's some really interesting stuff in Point Break. Do you ever see that one?
No.
Yeah, really? With Keanu Reeves.
I think I've seen the new one.
Yeah, I saw the new one too, yeah. That was pretty good, actually. I kind of liked it. For a silly movie like that. Extreme athletes.
Like
Extreme.
Just because you didn't make it as an extreme athlete, you don't have to be angry at the extreme athlete. You should have been off the bread back then.
Yeah. I didn't never want to be an extreme athlete.
Come on.
No, really?
No, yeah. You just fucking
I'm starting
radiate. I wish I was an extreme athlete.
I'm doing it now. Next year I'm going to do some backcountry skiing. That's my goal. To take my avalanche course and do backcountry skiing. So no more of that.
47 years old.
Runs.
Still chasing that extreme athlete.
Hey, I got to do it while I can, man. I won't be able to do that forever.
Well, you should have done it fucking 20 years ago.
Yep.
Oh, well, live and learn. I should do it now then. I'm still injured. Anyway, big thanks to Jay for coming on the show. Check out his stuff. Check out his YouTube. Big thanks to you guys for listening. Check out grimerica.ca/support for all the different monthly options. One-time donations you can do there to help keep us going and doing these commercial-free, uninterrupted chats. Coming at you for free every week. Of course, we did roll out our new program where we are rewarding our supporters with a couple shows a month. So I think there's a few 6 or 7 shows in there already.
The Black Budget support feed.
Yeah, Black Budget support feed.
Is this where we should talk about what we're planning on putting in there? Maybe we're thinking about doing a full-on trip report show with Darren's and mine and listeners.
We should do that in the intros.
Should we? Okay.
Nobody's listening to this.
People might listen.
People. No, I think as soon as the guest signs off, they're out.
You think so? No, I think sometimes they like to hear the rundown, but then they leave.
Well, let us know if you heard this part.
Yeah. We should play a little secret at the end.
Play a whole secret episode, but they'd notice on their
having a cult section, a hidden
still
section.
Half an hour left.
Hidden, yeah, they'll be like, why is there so much time? They're fast forwarding 30, trying to get to it, and then all of a sudden they miss it.
Wow. There you have it.
That's what I'd be doing.
That's what he'd be doing. You could be doing it too. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We will see you next week.
Somehow I built a rocket ship out of the stuff dreams are made and popsicle sticks. Please look at my rocket ship schematics. Tell me you can fly to the moon. Tell me I'm not a lunatic. I bet you think I'm a space cadet. I bet you think I'm a space cadet. No regret, I do not fret, 'cause I am a space cadet. In my hands I have a gas bet you do the countdown. 3, 2, 1, no hesitation. I bet you think I'm a space cadet. I bet you think I'm a space cadet. I bet you think I'm a space cadet. No regret, I do not fret, 'cause I am a space cadet. No regret, I do not fret, 'cause I am a dreamer. Look at my rocket ship fly by, trailing behind a silver streamer. No regret, I do not fret, 'cause I am a space cadet. No regret, I do not fret, 'cause I am a dreamer. Look at my rocket ship fly by, trailing behind a silver steamer. Do not fret, 'cause I am a space
Hailstorm damage got you blue? Sunburn get you let down? Well, introducing the new Chemtrails. Chemtrails are a convenient new chemtrail that we plow through your sky to ensure you with the haziest and non-blue sky that you could have.
Chemtrails.
Choose from our variety of geo-engineered aerosols loaded with toxic chemicals. Some chemicals may include barium, strontium-90, aluminum, cadmium, zinc, viruses of all sorts and varieties, and chaff, which actually looks like snow, but may actually be fibers coated with aluminum, desiccated blood cells, plastic, and paper. All chemtrails can be conveniently customized for your needs. Just ask our friend here, James Cruz.
Chemtrails.
James Cruz ordered the barium, strontium-90, and the chaff. And the chaff he chose was desiccated blood cells and plastic.
Chemtrails.
So I'm sitting in my backyard getting sunburned constantly, and I hear this ad come on the radio. Chemtrails.
Chemtrails.
And what they can do for you is amazing. For 33 payments of $333,
Chemtrails.
no more sunburn. Thanks, Chemtrails.
Chemtrails.
Thanks, Chemtrails.
Chemtrails.
That's right, James. For 33 easy payments of $330, you too could have a hazy sky with zero sun and zero sunburn.
Chemtrails.
With our brand new technology coming straight out of MIT, we fitted an airplane with nozzles, and we can come to any area in the world and spray your backyard.
Chemtrails.
Warning, warning, warning! Symptoms associated with chemtrails include aneurysms, strokes, heart attacks, and cancer.
Chemtrails.
Other side effects may include irradiated breast milk, anal leakage, jock itch, runny nose, irregular vaginal discharge, glaucoma, heavy metal poisoning, lockjaw, and low sperm count, persistent hacking, coughing, upper respiratory and intestinal distress, pneumonia, extreme fatigue, disorientation, lethargia, dizziness, splitting headaches, elevated arthritis symptoms, nosebleeds, blah blah blah, yada yada, etc. Doctors, blah blah blah, death.
Chemtrails.
If you want it, we spray it. So get your chemtrails today. Call 1-900-GRAY-SKY. That's 1-900-GRAY-SKY. That's 1-900-WEFUCKED.
Thanks, chemtrails.
Spam Graham.